Hello boys and girls, and here again. This is going to be a little bit different this episode. As you see, I've got Marvel Puzzle Quest up again. I don't tend to play another game again, but to be honest, the game playing today is kind of irrelevant. I wanted to do like something to talk about the whole Robin Williams dying and what it means to me and things like that. I didn't want to write an obituary on my website because I've kind of got issues with obituaries. I think a lot of the time they're just ways of grabbing views on your website. I suppose the same could be said about what I'm doing now, but I'm not going to tag this with Robin Williams. I'm not going to say it's a Robin Williams thing. I'm just going to put this video up there and leave it with some generic title. So I'm not going to try and drag anything in, you know. There's not going to be any way to keyword search Robin Williams and find this, essentially. That's what I'm saying. The reason I've chosen Marvel Puzzle Quest for this, purely because I've already covered it on the channel before, so if you want to see pure gameplay, I'll put a link in the about description below. You can go watch the gameplay of that. There is going to be gameplay, and I'm going to play as I'm going along, and I'll probably accidentally mention something on here. But yeah, I just basically want to say a few things, because I think it's kind of important. He's like an actual genuine legend that died. Let's go into this. Yeah, I want to start with the bad stuff though, because that's how I roll. A couple of bad things happened from this whole thing. I mean, other than him dying, obviously, which is actual genuine tragedy. Well, the actual correct use of the word tragedy. It's not a case of some random person dying of old age or something, and everyone says it's a tragedy because it's sad. It's actually a tragedy because, you know, succumbed to illness eventually, and you know, couldn't take it anymore. Ended his life. But yeah, the two bad things that happened. First of all, Zelda Williams goes on Twitter, says thank you to everyone for, you know, their support and everything, all nice, and some little twat bags run her off Twitter, just basically throwing abuse at her. So that was a pretty incredibly dickish thing for them to do. They've been suspended since. Twitter have said that they're going to review their policies regarding, you know, how the abuse is registered and stuff like that, because the way Twitter's abuse policy works right now is that the victim has to report the abuse. They have to provide a link, and there's been cases of the people who have sent the abuse deleting their tweets once they realise they've been reported, because Twitter doesn't actually follow that. If they can't see the link, as far as they're concerned, the abuse never happened and it's all sorted and it's fine. And their attitude is that the person who's been abused has to report it, which is stupid. In the world of Twitter, if Twitter ruled the world, then 100% of murders would go unsolved because no victim would ever report the crime. I've reported before now where a friend of mine has been getting, you know, attacked by someone throwing abuse at them. I've reported it and you get an email back. I've done it on a couple of people actually, saying sorry, but we can't do anything about this because you're not the one being abused. The victim has to contact us, which means then the victim has to expose themselves to the crap that's been plaguing them for the day. So yeah, that's changing. That's good, but that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it's kind of disgusting that there's anyone out there who would willingly just throw abuse at someone whose dad died for whatever reason. I know there's people out there who think that someone who commits suicide is a coward for some reason. That's a ridiculously horrible thing to think. You know, it's incredibly informed, and it shows a lack of understanding of, you know, mental illness and thereabouts. You know, it's messed up in all sorts of ways. You know, I've had bad times in my past. I wouldn't ever say I was like fully clinically depressed, because, you know, I know people who are clinically depressed, and what I went through was nowhere near as bad as what they went through. But yeah, don't be a dick to someone who's not only just lost their father, but lost him due to depression, who, you know, you don't understand anything about. So piss off. Those two Twitter users have been banned now, although chances are they've just gone and created another Twitter account, knowing the way Twitter does things. Yeah, that's kind of bollocks. The other one, I'm just going to call out another YouTuber here. I didn't even know he existed until the other day. I'm browsing around my Twitters on my phone, and you know, you get the adverts, promoted tweets on there. which I don't see on the PC because I have ad block on Twitter. But I see it on my phone. Up it comes, this promote tweet for a YouTuber called Theo Joe. That was it. I was trying to remember the name for a second. And I go on there, and I look at his account because I'm like, let's see, he's a YouTube comedian. You know, I should know the YouTubers, shouldn't I? And his first tweet on there is lol at all the butthurt people about my Robin Williams joke who thought it was offensive. I'm like, oh god, what's he done? He's made a joke that everyone's hated, obviously. I go looking through his feed, which, by the way, he's now deleted everything and not put an apology up on his Twitter account. There's like a little black hole around the day Robin Williams died on his account. Little cowardly cunt. He basically tweeted a phrase which he obviously thought was funny and then pretended it was a quote by Robin Williams. The phrase being, "I'd rather die before I install Facebook Messenger." The joke is, to him at least, I mean he calls it a joke, that Robin Williams didn't like that you're going to have to use Facebook Messenger on your phone soon, the app, and so he committed suicide because of that. What he was actually doing, and he needs to understand the difference between offence and good taste, people weren't offended that he did that joke, they were disgusted. So Theo Joe, you guy, I've looked at your YouTube account and you're terribly unfunny. With your acne ridden face and your equipment that you've clearly, like, how have you got 100,000 subscribers? It's Jesus. And then again, I ask the same thing about PewDiePie, and I don't argue. If people like something, they like something, don't they? No one watches my channel. It's fine by me. I'll just do this for fun anyway. But where was I? The problem with your joke in inverted commas, you took something that has absolutely nothing to do with Robin Williams, attached Robin Williams' name to it in order to cash in on the fact that he is currently a buzzword on the internet because of his death. He's currently going everywhere. So what you did is you took a painfully unfunny joke and then tried to cash in on someone's death. That is horrible and despicable and terrible. It makes you a cunt. You don't do that. If you want to make a joke about someone who's died who's a jerk, and I'm one of these people who's like, generally humour is humour, do it well, you know, if you want to tell a joke about some bad off-colour joke, go for it. I'm not going to get outraged, except I'm outraged here obviously, but make the joke make sense and make it a joke that's not only good or even just comedically bad, but don't take advantage of a bad situation to promote yourself. He essentially, like, that is the ultimate in scavenging and trying to make yourself seem like you're funny and be edgy and cool, whilst taking directly advantage of the actual mourning of people. Like, I mean, I'm going to get into what Robin Williams means to me in a minute, but that is a genuinely good person who had a tortured life, who had an actual tragic death, and you are cashing in on his death. I went on there just now and he's done the joke that loads of other people have done now. He's put rest in peace Robbie Williams, as in Robbie Williams from Take That, 2 days late. Well done. It was funny the first day. It was kind of endearing because there was probably people out there who did thought Robbie Williams had died. You know, they might have misheard it. Nah, it's just stupid and you're covering your tracks. You've deleted your tweet and therefore broken off the link to all the people who responded to you calling you a cunt. Yeah, you're a twat. Enjoy that little 100,000 subscriber plaque you've got. You've now sullied your name. Let's get on to good stuff and play another round of this, because I killed that round quite quickly, I thought. By the way, when you make a mistake, you owe up to it, right? Just go back to Theo Joe here again. I don't hide my mistakes. Case in point, if you go to my last Marvel Puzzle Quest video, I spent the whole video mentioning how these timers mean that you've got a block in your way from continuing to play the game, that eventually you could run out of the health packs you've got and you might have to pony up to play. Turns out you don't have to. I acknowledged that when someone mentioned it in the comments below. I replied to that and said, oh really? Oh, didn't realise that. I've been playing this game for ages and never actually realised, because I'm pretty sure the game crashed on me once when it did accept it. And I've left that video up, I didn't redo it. I've just kept it there because if I make a mistake, I want people to see it and then they can call me out on it, because that's what happens when you make a mistake. You should be accountable for it. You know, dare I say it. Right, I don't know how long this video's been going now because I'm not timing it for once, but let's go into the things with Robin Williams and what he means and stuff. Right, here's the thing that I realised when this came up. I don't usually mention when someone dies. I don't make a big deal out of it because, you know, it's lame, it's terrible. I might say one or two things and then leave it at that. But the thing with Robin Williams, it actually affected me. I mean, I was writing a review for my site, filmdump.com. If you don't know, that's like where I review films. So films mean a lot to me. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to promote the website there. That sounded terrible. That's another mistake I'll leave in. But I was writing a review and I stopped writing it. I basically ended the review there. I just put it on there due to news that I've just heard. I'm not going to carry on this review any further, and I posted it as it is rather than hold it to later, because if I went back to it later I'd just be reminded and I would struggle to finish off the review. Film was great. It's review number 330 if you really want to look at it. Not that there's mentions anything in there. But where was I? I realised upon this news that I can't actually think of a time when I don't know the name Robin Williams. I've been trying to think back to, like, what is the absolute earliest I would remember Robin Williams in, like, as like someone who I was entertained by. And I think back and there's like literally a point where I just know of Robin Williams, and it's from a young age. You know, I remember watching Mork and Mindy when it was repeated on Channel 4 as a kid. I say repeated, it ended in 1982, so it was straight after I was born. The way British television was back then, it could have been the first run of the show. But yeah, I you know, used to watch Mork and Mindy as a kid. I was a huge fan of Popeye, and fuck anyone who says that film sucks. Popeye's a good film, maybe. But I love that film. Good Morning Vietnam was a film I watched at a young age because my parents were the sort of people who weren't too concerned about what I was watching and if it was filled with swears and depressing moments. You know, there's a film that I enjoyed when I was young. I used to have the soundtrack to it. I used to listen to it tons, like, you know, on cassette tape, because that's what we had in the 80s. Cassette tapes were an old delivery medium of MP3s, if you don't know. That's a joke. I made that's how you do jokes, Theo. You make a reference and it makes sense to the content that you're doing. So yeah, I honestly can't remember a time when Robin Williams wasn't a factor in my entertainment as a child. Obviously as I got older, it was stuff like, you know, Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire and the comedies. Fisher King stands up as possibly one of the greatest dramas about mental illness and depression there's ever been. I mean, a masterwork of Terry Gilliam's, absolutely beautiful film. You should definitely watch. If anyone says recommend a film, if you want a drama of Robin Williams, Fisher King, no doubt, watch it. It's beautiful. But this is one thing I really loved as I was watching all the people on Twitter reminiscing about his works, and I noticed a pattern. It's not like with a lot of other people who died. They weren't just saying the same film every time. It was all sorts of people saying all sorts of different films, and there was like a pattern of which films certain people liked. Like a lot of friends of mine you know, maybe a bit more casual when it comes to films and stuff, but when they were young they just loved the entertainment value of them and stuff. They all say Mrs. Doubtfire or Aladdin, which makes perfect sense. They're fantastic films, well worth watching. You know, even Mrs. Doubtfire, you know, I enjoyed that. No one was saying Toys, which bugs me, because again, that's a film that's better than a lot of people give it credit for. I mean, Jesus Christ, if you want a film that gives you a metaphor for America's military and a commentary on that, Toys, watch it. But they all had different things. Like Amanda Palmer started a Twitter campaign going where people were standing on their desk with a sign saying, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," obviously referencing Dead Poets Society, which is another work of art. You know, I saw people mentioning 1 Hour Photo, which is an often overlooked film. Absolutely brilliant film, 1 Hour Photo, if you haven't seen it. Very dark, very grim. And that's something else with Robin Williams. There's like, he wasn't someone who like shied away from showing a more fragile side of himself. He was very open about his depressions and his addictions. You know, I remember there's a Graham Norton show where Graham Norton had a glass of wine. It was right after Robin Williams came out of rehab, and Robin Williams is joking about it straight away. Makes a joke about Amy Winehouse, which is now probably not the best thing to do. Nah, screw it, make jokes about Amy Winehouse, it's fine. I kid, she was good. But yeah, he all his films, if you go back through them, they all, like almost all of them at some point, deal with being different, being an outsider, having trouble coping with certain things, emotional issues that a character may have, like depression, anxieties, fears. They all come through. Fisher King, prime example. But even films like Mrs. Doubtfire is about a man scared of losing his children, which I'm sure at some point Robin felt. As in the 80s and 70s, he was very much an addict, and that must have played into the life at some point, and that must have played with his fears. I mean, yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire is essentially about him wanting to keep his children in real life in many ways. Keep the contact there despite how he can't do it himself all the time. Superb film. Oddly, I didn't see many people mentioning Jumanji, which I thought that would be a kids' film that most people would have gone on about endlessly. I suppose for younger kids today it would be Night at the Museum, which is fair enough, because Night at the Museum is not a bad little film. I quite enjoyed that. It surprised the hell out of me when I watched that. I can't find a gem to destroy. There. There you go, that's the one comment on the game for this. But yeah, it was interesting to see all sorts of different people mentioning different films and saying that they all seemed to mean something, and there was so, I didn't come across any hateful responses, with the exception of the people abusing Zelda Williams, which again, they're twats. But yeah, it was all just outpourings, and I didn't see anyone cracking jokes other than that Theo guy. Everyone was being respectful and saying how much Robin Williams meant to them, and that's really nice. They all mentioned the films that they'd seen that meant a lot to them as a youth. Conversely, not to dismiss anything Lauren Bacall did, because she was a great in her day as well. But the most common film I saw anyone crediting Lauren Bacall with today, as saying it was an influence on them, is Casablanca, a film that she isn't in. So well done, people on the internet. Well done. You're obviously, most likely, it could be a mistake, but I think more likely you're just trying to cash in on a hashtag, aren't you? Shitty people doing shitty things. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other things about Robin Williams films that I really enjoyed in the day. Like I mentioned, Toys was a great one. Fish King's a great one. Mork and Mindy is just a beautiful little show, like such a pure sitcom with such a bizarre premise that other sitcoms have tried doing similarly bizarre premises over the years. There was a sitcom on BBC called My Heroes, which is essentially the same thing with a superhero. It was fucking terrible. As a kid, there was a show we had on British TV called Mike and Angelo, which was the same thing. Alien comes to Earth and sets up house with a young boy. Yeah, probably not the best plot device ever. But then you talk about Robin Williams as a dramatic actor, and he made important films that actually had a message and delivered a message, and if they didn't make people feel necessarily great about themselves, because they often dealt with pretty harsh issues, they at least tapped into something that people had inside them that they wanted to, that they maybe couldn't verbalise, whether it be their own anxieties or depressions or fear. And that's kind of incredible. I probably should just mention some of my favourite, what films of his are definitely worth watching. Obviously I said Fisher King. Toys, as I mentioned, that's one that hardly anyone's seen. Like, hardly anyone remembers that. But that deserves some credit. That film does stuff. It's brilliant. Popeye, which I still maintain is an absolutely superb film, should be watched. If there's any film right now that's poignant to say, World's Greatest Dad. That's a film by Bobcat Goldthwait, where Robin Williams plays the father of a teenager. His teenager's a complete jerk to everyone at school, and he commits suicide doing an autoerotic asphyxiation act. And his father writes a love letter, not love letter, that was wrong words. His father writes a sort of goodbye note, which then gets passed around school and becomes a media sensation, and everyone blows it all out of hand, and they romanticise the idea of suicide, which you shouldn't do. You shouldn't romanticise the idea of suicide necessarily. I mean, I know some people do. It depends on your how you look at the afterlife and religion and stuff like that. So fair enough, you do. But those genie or free now tweets that were going around was kind of a bit shit. Fair game to you if it means something to you. But World's Greatest Dad has the line in it where it's remember that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary answer, which some people said, oh, Robin Williams should have taken his advice himself, but that's not something that he could affect. Like, if you're going to commit suicide, you're not doing it because you've got entirely full control over everything you're doing at this time. You're doing it because your brain isn't producing dopamine and you're collapsing into a spiral where you literally cannot cope with anything. Yeah, often not being able to get out of bed is a common one, and that sounds like laziness to some people. And some people will just say, pull yourself together or something. It's not the way to handle it. But World's Greatest Dad, there's a good one. Other films of his deal with death and suicide. It's a common thread that runs through some of his films. But it's a good one. That film, overlooked. Films not to watch, don't bother with RV or Old Dogs. Oh, Death to Smoochie, there's one. I'm running through IMDb right now, just refreshing my memory on what ones I should pick up. Because I'm thinking I need some of these. I haven't actually covered any Robin Williams films on my site, which is a massive oversight by me. But yeah, the Death to Smoochie is a massively underrated film. It's so much fun, that film. I don't know why it got hated so much. I think because it's got a really dark storyline. It's about a children's TV host is replaced by Edward Norton in a dinosaur costume, which, you give me a film of Edward Norton in a dinosaur costume and I'm going to be happy. That's a brilliant use of his acting talents, I think. But yeah, absolutely superb film. He sets out to get revenge on him. And yeah, really enjoyable, directed by Danny DeVito. A lot of people love Patch Adams, so I was never too keen on it. I didn't see many people mentioning Flubber. There's one, yeah. Flubber's a film that a lot of kids love. I remember that was a really popular film back when it came out. Yeah, but I suppose maybe Mrs. Doubtfire is the one that most people remember. A lot of people have come from broken homes, such as myself, and something like that can kind of connect with them. You know, I mean, it means a lot to certain people. I'm trying to think. There was The World According to Garp in the early 80s. That was a good film. Let's have a look and see if there's anything I've missed, because I don't want to leave anything out. Insomnia, there's a decent film to watch. There's so many that are worth Deconstructing Harry. I think he's only got a small role in that, if I remember rightly. But yeah, he does a lot of small roles in great films. The Birdcage, there's one. Superb film as well. That's got Eddie Izzard in it as well. And Eddie Izzard was talking about Robin Williams on Newsnight the other day and choking up on TV, which is like a show of how much one person can mean to another. And they shared one film together, and like, there's no indication that they stayed in contact and were best friends or anything. But it's the influence of one comedian on another, and it was kind of touching to see Eddie Izzard literally on the edge of tears because of the loss of Robin Williams. I mean, that's how much he means to some people, like, who haven't shared much time with him. I mean, there's going to be people who haven't even ever had any contact with him. Oh my god, the amount of voice work he did in cartoons, Fern Gully and Aladdin, stuff like that. Oh, he's in Adventures of Baron Munchausen briefly, wasn't he? Yeah, Good Will Hunting. I'll put IMDb down now instead of just browsing through that. But yeah, I think I've mostly said all I want to say is that there's a reason there's such a big outpouring of support and remembrance for him right now, is because he was someone who bared his soul directly onto screen. It wasn't just someone who just picked roles because they thought it would further their career. He picked roles because they genuinely had genuinely meant something to him. He didn't hide his problems, and he, exposed himself like a raw nerve sometimes, showing exactly what's going on with him, what his mental state is, and pushing it through, but always being very bright and cheery. He wouldn't make a public appearance where he looked upset. He'd always be making jokes and making people laugh and putting everything he can into making other people laugh, because that's clearly what made him feel good and managed to push the edge away a little bit of his, the demons in his head. But yeah, that's basically all I can think to say right now. Like I said at the start of this, I know there's gameplay going on here, but that's only because it's a gameplay channel. I didn't want to have just a black screen or something, there's something to watch while I'm rambling mindlessly. But yeah, normal service will resume soon. I hope you've enjoyed this and maybe reminisced a little bit. Feel free to mention stuff in the comments below. That's my memories of Robin Williams, and it's kind of scary that he's gone now. Like, Rick Mayall died earlier this year as well, who was a British hero for me. Like, one of the earliest comedians I remember being obsessed with as a kid. And now Robin Williams is gone as well. And there's not many comedians around today that I'd be sorry, really, really this sorry to see go. Very few touch like the emotions the way they do. So yeah, I mean, really, Louis C.K. may be the only person who I think's worthy of that level of care. Although obviously whoever you love, if you love Rob Schneider, you're an idiot. Rob Schneider's terrible. But yeah, that's Robin Williams. Don't be abusive to people. Don't make jokes that are completely stupid, that have nothing to do with Robin Williams at his expense, just to try and get yourself over somehow. Don't be a dick to people. Just remember his good films and watch fucking Popeye, because he may fight a rubbish octopus at the end, but the song "I Am What I Am and That's All That I Am," brilliant. The film's brilliant. The sets are amazing. Shelley Duvall's olive oil is spot on. Oliver Reeder's Bluto. Come on, it's Popeye. Popeye the Sailor Man. Rest in peace, dude. Bye.